Welcome, my name is Ishar and this is StarMade. And today we are continuing our interior build of our universal trading ship over here, as usual for the last couple of episodes. So I'm hoping you're not getting too bored with interior, but that's my main focus because I want to get this ship done. And in order to get this ship done, I've got a couple of things on my list for this episode today that I want to accomplish. One of the things is taking a second look at the AMS turrets I've got over here. Like I said last time, I do like the barrels on these things, but I don't like the base of the turret all that much at the moment, so I'm going to work on that for a bit. And there's also two turrets over here. These are still the bigger, older ball turrets I had on this ship. But I'm thinking about removing these two and then replacing them with a different structure on this spot. It does mean that I have two less turrets, but yeah, sacrifices had to be made to make this ship look the way I want it to look. So that's for the exterior, what I want to do. But there's a couple of things on the interior that I want to change. Because last time we worked on the hallways next to the big blue block over here that houses the power systems and the yellow one for the shields. We had these hallways with all these machineries and things hanging from the ceiling that gave it a really cramped and machine-like feeling to this particular deck. But there's still two spots in this deck plan missing. But this entire area over here, this is where the elevator comes up. So yeah, this is basically where you get the first impression of this particular deck once you exit the elevator. And there was this very awkward spot all the way at the front of the ship over here. I did put in a space over here, but yeah, it was very awkwardly shaped. So I'm going to take a second attempt at this as well and hopefully fill this in. Because if I fill in these two spots, these two main spots, then this upper deck will be done as well. So that's one less deck I have to worry about. And then I can concentrate on the middle decks. And that's what I really want, because that's where more of the fun decorating stuff is going to happen. But it doesn't mean that this deck isn't getting the attention it needs, because this big space over here we can do a whole lot with. And speaking of big spaces, I want to walk you guys through the process I'm going for this particular space, because that might give you some insight on how I develop certain areas within the ship. Because I did put in a floor at the moment, and as you can see, this area is quite big. I mean, if you look at it from an astronaut perspective from over here, yeah, this is quite a lot of room to fill. And as you can see here, I put already a couple of blocks down that mark the specific spaces that I use between the pillars here as well. So that's one pillar, then 7 spaces for a wall, then a pillar again, etc., etc. So this particular division I'm going to continue in this bigger space. And that's one of my attention points for this room. Dividing the room in different spaces, because it is so big, you can divide it in smaller spaces without actually dividing the space itself. I'm not sure if I'm telling this correctly, but yeah, it will be one big room, but because of the pillars and other stuff I put in here, the room itself will be divided within smaller spaces for your astronauts to walk through. And for the side bit over here, I can use the same shape that I've got over here, like this. This angle bit I can copy and then place over here as well, and do something with some other type of machinery inside it. So that would fill up this entire space entirely. On the back here, I still got a bit of space left because I can't get another 7 spaces wall and a pillar on that end, but I can do something with, well, equipment that is half in the wall and half in the space itself to see if I can fill up some of the excess space I've got over here, because I want to have well, don't use that much motherboards to fill in the empty blank spaces if I can prevent it. My next step is putting up some of the walls, and as you can see here, this already defines the space I have available quite a lot, and I added these side hallway bits as well. Just copied them from the parts I already had, but I slightly divided them slightly differently than the one over here, because I've got a door here in the end and the beginning, and then the grate in the middle. In this case, I've got a solid wall, then a grate, then a door, and then on this side the same thing. So it's quite different, but it is basically the same type of hallway space that I had over there. And in the ceiling, you can already see a bit that I did some additional shapes as well, these round shapes over here, because when I was building this space and putting in these support girders, I noticed that I sort of lined up with the antennas here on top of the ship, and that also will show you the new structures I put here on top in player space of the turrets I had over here. So this is my communication array. So we've got these big normal antennas and then these ball antenna things, and there's actually something inside, some sort of antenna structure as well. Well, you can't see it normally, but if you shoot it, then it will be visible. And like I said, these sort of line up with these round spaces in my big room over here. So I'm imagining that it will connect from all the way up there with some sort of piping and lines down to this space over here, and then into some machinery that's, I don't know, either processes the signals from the ship or feeds power to the transmitting array on top of the ship, something like that. So yeah, that's one of the ideas I have for this space, and I have to think about what type of machinery I can put in here to further up the fight, the room that I have. This is the view from the elevator again, and as you can see, I've got a couple of blocks of mass enhancers placed within this space now. Because I was working on this roof section with the piping bits, as you can see here, that come down from all the way from those antenna arrays down to this space. I think this looks quite interesting. Not exactly the same, there's a little bit of variation between the two. And in the space that I had left over here, connecting to the top here, I had these blocks of mass enhancers placed over here, and yeah, okay, they do take up a space that I would probably not use for anything, but I thought, okay, I can use them in my own interior as well, and then I can probably manage them a bit better. So I tried placing them over here, and then I have to think of some sort of dressing to dress them up a bit to make them look like machinery. And then this piping that comes down from the roof can go into these machines and then do something with the signals or boost the signals. I'm not sure what exactly. I also added these pillars to the sides of the room. So now you see that I have multiple divisions within my bigger space. I've got the side hallways like this. Then we've got this section with a 2 high, floor high well, sort of hallway that lines up with the hallway I have over here. But it's a bit more open because you can look to your left and enter the bigger space within the middle, where the bigger machines are and all the piping comes down from the ceiling. And some more progress. This is my initial attempt at well, dressing up this this block of mass enhancers, but I'm not quite happy with it as it is now. It's too massive, at least the way it looks now, and yeah, too uniform. There's not enough variation within these machines to draw the interest of people that walk into this room. So I have to think about some other ideas. What I did add is this thing at the end. So you already notice it, I think. If you exit the elevator over here, the first thing your eye is drawn to as a player is to the centerpiece at the end of the space. So these machines on the side basically draw your eye all the way to the back of the room and frame this thing over here. This is some sort of power support systems or perhaps a shield enhancer, something that does something. Sometimes I build something and I'm not even sure what it exactly needs to do. But yeah, it looks interesting and it would fill up the space, like I said, partly in the wall and partly in the space itself of the room. But yeah, it's a bit bare, especially the walls next to it, that I need to do something with. And like I said, I connected these pipes to these machines, so they are nicely connected to the antennas up above on the roof of the ship. And the next iteration. This already looks a whole lot more interesting and far more industrial. So I removed basically all the grates from the front, then added these stairs and platform bits. So as an astronaut you can now walk up, do something with this control panel over here for this machine, and that goes for each machine in turn. So now they look like things that you can actually manage as an astronaut, and that helps quite a bit. I'm still not sure about the overall color scheme. I still need to play around with the lighting a bit because it is a bit dull and gray at the moment, but I can work on that some more. I did add these orange tanks here at the end in the wall, and I'm probably going to fill them with something because well, at the moment the back is not built, but I'm going to build the back as well and then fill them with lava, I think, just to have something inside these tanks. And I need to think of something to put in here as well, because this is quite empty still, and that's something I need to be a bit more detailed as well. I tried adding these orange tanks on this end as well, but the spacing is a bit different because the elevator is a lot smaller than the machinery here at the end. So it didn't work out quite as well as I thought it would, so I'm going to remove these and then think of something else to put here. Proper lighting can make such a big difference. You can immediately see the results over here. This really frames the room quite nicely. There's a lot of detail, a lot of things to look at as an astronaut, and yeah, it lights up a whole lot better with everything installed. So I added quite a number of small details. I finished up the ceiling, so I put in some ceiling lights. There's not that many, but enough to light it up. Some lights here in the floor. Then I added these red circuit breakers, I call them. Small details with some color to make it pop within the room. And then, as you can see at the ends, I put in these teal light bars, and they light up this entire space quite nicely. So if you enter this room, your attention is even more drawn to the machine in the back, and everything frames it to draw your attention to it. So yeah, this is quite an important piece of machinery. Still don't know what it does, but it's important for some reason. Added some controls here for these tanks as well. So that's quite nice and done. I added some additional grating details within the hallway, and then I added these small generators on in the side rooms over here. These are the same type of generators I had in the generator room down below next to the engine room, but without the bigger bluer part. So yeah, I copied those and then changed them a bit, and that worked out quite nicely. There's still a couple of smaller details I might change, but for the most part it's done. I did put in these fences, for example. Yeah, I think it worked out quite nicely. So there's lots of details to look at within this space. Oh yeah, and of course I changed this. I haven't showed that before. Some sort of machinery as well with piping inside, but yeah, I don't know what it does either. The last part of this floor that I need to change is this part here in the front. This was the very awkward space that connected to the long hallway surrounding the power modules. And yeah, the thing I can do with this is divide them up as well. That will probably provide me with a solution I can live with, because yeah, these shapes are very awkward. And that's exactly what I did. By dividing the shapes, I could get a floor plan in here that would make a bit more sense than the big space I had over here. So I just laid it out with some standard blocks. So you enter in this space, and then you got a door on the left and on the right. Then you enter this space. So this is now a symmetrical space. Then we've got a very small room over here that we can put in some, well, probably servers or something like that. And we've got a bit of space here for one of these crates with piping behind it. So it looks like there's a lot more going on behind here than there actually is. And I stepped away from exactly filling up this space. So this space is probably going to be filled with just circuit boards, but I just have to make it look like there's stuff going on here instead of filling everything up exactly as it is. So I'm cheating a little bit here in this section, but I don't think I have a choice for this area. I changed some of the spacing in this hallway as well, because this wall over here is now one block further back than it was before, so I had to move the whole thing one block over. So now I've got this spacing of 7 and this blue light in the middle, the same as I had for the long hallways. And I finished up this front area now, so I put in some general electrical type decorations that I had in other areas as well. And then here on the side I've got a couple of these generators that I had before, a couple of the circuit breakers and some other doodads, and the piping like I said. And in this area over here I've got a couple of server blocks to all control this electrical stuff. So yeah, this is a very general area, but I couldn't do all that much with it. I just did my best with what I had. I did add some additional details to this hallway. I added these 2 brown pipes here in the middle. It gives a, well, point of visual interest, but also because it sort of lined up with these crates here on the outside of the ship. So I wanted to indicate that some sort of heat is being vented from the power core to the outside of the ship. So yeah, that's one additional change I made, and for the rest this is all quite the same as you remember it, with all the little details added and checked. So for my purposes, this deck is now done. It's completely filled out the space, and I can work on the decks below it now. There's one other thing I wanted to show. I talked about it in the beginning of the episode, and that is the point defense turrets. I changed the base of the point defense turret quite a bit, made it a bit more enclosed, and I like this a bit more. Looks a bit more solid than it was with the frames I had before. So I'm keeping them like this, and I still haven't tested them all that thoroughly yet, but I'll get around to that. That's it for this episode. I rambled on quite a bit, but I hope you learned something about my design process for this area. If you have any questions or other remarks, put them in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.